What did you make of this announcement?
I was surprised, but not at the same time, because there's been so much talk around it. You can't keep a secret in this game of golf these days. But I wasn't sure it was ever going to happen. It's such a huge moment because he's the first, with all due respect to Brooks Koepka, who won a major last year. You felt like maybe some of his best days were a bit behind him. Jon Rahm is absolutely at the forefront of the game right now. You'd have to put him alongside Rory McIlroy, more impact than Scottie Scheffler, even though Scottie Scheffler's ranked #1 in the world. So to lose a player of that ilk to LIV is a monumental loss to the PGA Tour, DP World Tour as well. So it's huge news, and the ripple effect could be massive. I still think there's a ton of unknowns into what will happen, how it affects the framework agreement, whether or not it's a bit of positioning as well for the PIF against the PGA Tour in trying to make this deal happen and get the right terms. But in real terms, from what we know, where LIV exists and will be a tour next year, it's a big loss, because we're used to seeing Jon Rahm up against Rory McIlroy, up against Scottie Scheffler, the best players in the game, week in, week out, those biggest events. It's not going to happen next year. And that's a massive loss, not just for the game, but for the fans that get to tune in every week.
Is he trying to squeeze in just in time if there is going to be an agreement?
His motives for it, look, I like that Jon has at least been honest now with, I'm not going to lie to you, money was a big part. It has to be. £450 million is what I'm hearing, although I've heard so many different amounts as well banded around. But it's a lot of money. What I would say is the jump across, because of the framework agreement, is easier now for players. As much as it still leaves a bad taste in the mouth for a lot, certainly will do among some of his peers at the tour, with the tour itself, maybe with a lot of the fans in the game as well. The jump at the start was a bigger one. You're turning your back on all that's good in the game, was the mentality, going to this uprising, this regime as well that people were dead set against for obvious reasons, with the human atrocities in Saudi Arabia. All those arguments at the start, they were put on top of players that went then. Time has moved on, and whilst those atrocities remain still the same today, there's more of a look at what it is as a golfing product now. LIV is what it's become, and we look at the ups and downs, the pros and cons of what that is. For Jon to go across now, whilst the PIF, which is LIV, the Saudi Arabians, and the PGA Tour are trying to formalise an agreement with, of course, the DP World Tour to unify and come together, him going there is less offensive, I suppose, from the outset, from people looking in. From my point of view, looking at it, it's not as big a jump, but its impact is monumental. So I think him doing it now, him cashing in, the bit I wonder will be, other players who are on the PGA Tour or DP World Tour, big stars, are they going to look at it and think, well, if Jon's gone, should I be cashing in now in case we all come together as one big family and everything's right in the world again? Look, we're going to work together, it's going to be great. But Jon's got 450 million quid as well. So that mentality might be something going around the minds of some of these players. Understandably, if a player like Jon's going to go, you know, should I be staying? I don't want to be the last one left in the room who didn't take this money. And it is a business, it's their livelihoods. I would caveat all of that by saying, from my point of view, and I would never ever put myself in a position, it's so easy to stand in front of a camera and say, oh, I wouldn't take that money. They do this for a living. And when you're in that position, when it's being offered to you, the Richard Bland stories, for instance, I completely get that. In that situation, it's life-changing money for him that's allowed him to have the end of a career and a future once he retires that he could have only ever dreamed of before LIV came around. I understand that. For the players like Jon, who already have Brewster's millions and are going to never want for anything in their lives, I think as much as the money is so much bigger, you do still have that opportunity to make a decision that's best for what you believe in, for what's right maybe in the game of golf, for what your legacy wants to be. And I don't think he would have taken that lightly. So it makes me believe that he's going to be able to do this but still build his legacy, which makes me think in his mind, he knows more than we do. The one thing we've always had around this whole thing is we don't honestly know. I'm not going to stand in front of you and say, I think this will happen or that will happen. I don't know. Most of the players don't actually know. And that June 6th announcement with Jay Monahan and Yasser from Al Rumayyan from the Saudi investment, the PIF, that was news to most guys, as we were finding out watching on TV. And Tiger said in his presser last week, that shall never happen again. And I think that speaks from where the players are. People just don't know at the moment. Maybe Jon knows something, that this was the right time to cash in. You wouldn't want to give that money away if he's also going to be able to protect his legacy and grow who he is as a player for his future.
Yeah, we still don't know. We still don't know what the future of golf looks like.
No, we don't. We honestly don't. Look, I don't get to watch much of what's going on with LIV, to be honest, because of what I do with Sky, because we cover the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and that's a full-time thing. Team golf, I enjoy watching. I think if the best players in the game, if the 48 best players in the world were playing in a team element, that would be a fun watch. I think it would be watching the best in the game. That's not what LIV is at the moment. Of course, it's still in its baby steps of growing. And if they can come together, I think the whole idea in the first place, when PGL brought this idea, the concept of the 48 players, it was that it was the best players in the world going up against one another in a team element as well as an individual one. That is something that's encouraging for sponsors within the game as well, for fans as well, because you can root for people. In golf, you don't root for people particularly. You might have a favourite player. But in a team element, you can root against teams, as we do in football, for instance. We root against teams, we root for our team. So it has legs, but at the moment, what it has done, and where we stand today, and with this news of Jon Rahm, it's further separation, it's further fragmentation of a game that was already too much that way anyway. So I really hope when we learn more about this agreement with the tours, as someone who hasn't got any skin in the game financially, I hope we learn that golf comes together more, because what I really want is for our viewers, other than just the major championships, is to get to enjoy the best players week in, week out. And that's not what we have at the moment.